This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring author, psychologist, and daily contributor, Siobhan Scott.
With all the problems that we have in our society with this, with abusive parents, with the kids going back into these homes simply because it's the biological home and the reunification is priority number one. And then you also have the issues of child trafficking and such and everything else that you can throw into the mixer of just really toxic environments for these kids, our kids in our country, our American children. Why have we not done anything? This seems like it should be like priority number one of what we're doing, of looking out for our kids. I mean, has there been legislation that's ever been brought up to try and update any of these things or look at new information or new studies to go, hey, this was bad information back then. Maybe we should do it a little better or a little different. Has that been done? And if it has not, I guess, why? It's a glaring problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I have certainly read things indicating people's reports and essays on we need to change this bias. It seems like our system is so big and cumbersome. Once something is set in concrete, how do we change it? And I don't have an answer for that. I think for most citizens, it's out of sight, out of mind, which is one good thing about these cases getting the publicity. It at least puts it into awareness. It's such unpleasant stuff. You know, I get my news feed from Yahoo every day when I check my email over there. And the child abuse cases, for some reason, I must have signed up for the true crime section or whatever, because I get all these horrendous cases. And it's hard to read them. And there are days I go, I just can't absorb this, and I go right to something else and don't look at it. And I think that's the reaction most people have. People don't want to think about spousal abuse. They don't want to think about child abuse. And, you know, that's sounds like another book for me, right?
Yeah.
That's where I always go with this. Let me write another book about it. Yeah. Because we do need to make changes in the court system, but the system is so darn big. And once things get set in concrete, it just seems like, you know, nobody knows how to change it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just the weird thing. We change things all the time. We amend things all the time. Why is this one so difficult to do? Yeah. Well, I mean, it's such a glaring thing that affects so many people. But is that because it's icky? Because, you know, it's not something everybody wants. It's much easier for people to get behind, you know, rescuing puppies. It is. And which I love puppies. I have one there. I have one here. And I got a cat right over there. I'm not trying to take away from rescuing animals. But we are more quick to get behind that, I think, as a society than we are of like, let's rescue these kids that are in these horrific situations. I mean, you look at some of these homes where these kids are and you go, I wouldn't let my dog live there. But, you know, here's 10 kids that are hanging out and like, yeah, that is mom, right? And dad, or maybe there is no dad, or maybe there is no mom, or there's nobody, you know, half the time. And it's just accepted. And that to me is just weird that we have that sort of acceptance in our society of these sort of behaviors, yet we don't on so many others that are far less severe and far less impactful on human beings.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of denial as a culture. People don't want to think about it. They don't want to look at it. And then trying to change the laws is very complicated. And, you know, I study this stuff to a great degree. But when you say, how do we make changes? I kind of draw a blank, you know, and I promise I will spend the weekend looking at this more closely because I'm motivated. Watching this bit of trial, it just made me ill. It just made me ill what that child went through.
There's so many things you can look at this and, you know, it's not a business that somebody's running. It's trying to raise a child, but you can look at all the parts that were glaringly wrong and go, well, this was wrong. The person that's testifying, especially like the CPS workers and stuff, like they're doing what they have to do. They are so limited on their resources. They are simply accounting for what they are supposed to do. And they can't go beyond the limitations of their job. No. They'll go to jail for something. So I understand that the hands are tied, but that just seems to be the answer with everybody is hands are tied. Hands are tied.
Hands are tied.
Meanwhile, the children's like tied up in the basement being abused.
No, Tony, I swear you've just motivated me to write another book that people will say, oh, that's unpleasant. I don't want to read that
Yeah.
one.
That's why you
But
need to
we
put
need to
puppies
do
on the
that.
covers. Like just puppies and kittens on the cover, and you make it about rescuing puppies and kittens, and sometimes, oh, what's puppies and kittens? It's about kids. Oh my, it's like a bait and switch. You got to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Until
people
they
are,
open it up and they go, oh, this makes me upset. I'm not going to read that one. Let me go back to Twilight or Vampire
so
Romance.
you put
or
super glue on the
something,
first page, and it's only activated when they open their hands stuck into the book. Sorry, you have to read it now. But I mean, it's an icky subject, but it's a real subject, and it affects so many people, and it's only getting worse. And it makes you wonder how many other Harmony Montgomerys are out there that nobody knows about.
Yeah, it's incredible. It is just incredible. I remember talking with CPS workers who were so burned out with so much secondary trauma. And, they would be told they would go into meth houses and there would be needles all over the floor. And they would go back to their supervisor and say, they've got a 2-year-old in there, they've got babies in there. They've just got to clean the needles up. Get the needles off the floor. And that makes them sick because I think people want to go into that line of work because they care about kids. But so many burn out, they quit. The ones that stay probably do this their own defense mechanism. They're drinking a lot at night, and then they're doing things like, I've just got to get through the day and check off the boxes here. And it's I could never do that.
Yeah, because you go into it. That's why I say I could never be like a police officer or something like that, because my service revolver would come out at some point when it shouldn't for some horrible human being, and be like, I'm just gonna save the world and this child the headache of this right now. And I would probably feel the same way as a CPS worker because, you go in there and you have this probably, fantastical thought of I'm going to help. And some certainly do. In some situations, without a doubt, thank God, at least we have that. But it certainly needs a lot of work. But when you have no options to actually do your job and help these kids in a true, meaningful way, it's just putting Band-Aids in everything. And we just allow this madness to continue, for the sake of everyone has their rights. And I think that might be part of it too, of people, we would have to sacrifice some amount of rights, I think, if we're going to get our society in line to not be able to accept this sort of thing. And people would rather not do that whatsoever. They'd rather, well, it's not me that this is happening to, and whoever else this is happening to, well, that's them.
Yeah. So for those of us that are recognizing it, looking at it honestly, I think that's the next question. What am I going to do about it? What can I do about it? And I don't have all the answers right now, but I'm going to be, I'm hit emotionally by this case. And I'll be looking at that closer.
Next week, you will have all the answers for the rest of the world.
So.
Yes, we will solve the world's problem on this by next week.
Sick of the ads?
We are too.
Start listening with no commercials now and get access to all of our episodes in advance of everyone else.
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
True Crime Today Premium Plus.
Sign up now.